Alvin Bragg, in the course of his exploration into the Trump campaign, mysteriously gets a envelope full of white powder mailed to him completely anonymously with a Florida return address. That's right. Whoever did this wanted to make sure that everybody knew that it came from Florida, and yet people wonder why I question stupid crap like this. But we'll talk about that and what this could possibly mean and where we go from there. Iranian-backed airstrikes in Syria on a U.S. base leads to American airstrikes in Iran and Syria again, because we couldn't leave the Middle East alone without letting that go and pop off too. So we'll be talking about that, what that means, and where we go from there. The Nord Stream pipeline, with the help of Denmark, will be inviting the Russian owners to explore some of the debris that was found and recovered from the blast site. So we'll go over some of that and what's happening there. And John Fetterman. People are starting to question when he's going to come back to work, and now the mainstream media is telling us very, very soon. So we'll go over some of that. It is going to be all this and more. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary on this Friday afternoon. My name is Jay Edgar, and this is your evening news. And I'm going to come right out and say it. We might have a shorty tonight. I only have 26 tabs. Typically, the show comes in 40 plus. Sometimes it comes in like 70 tabs. But I only have 26 tonight, and we'll be going over it. We'll probably be out of here before 7:30. Maybe. We'll see how long we have to explain what's going on in the foreign theater today over here on Contemporary. So, a lot of stuff to go over, especially given the fact that, yes, once again, we're going to be going and doing things War Piggy-like over in the Middle East. Looks like the Mogwai is coming over here from Silentcaster's stream, so thank you for that. Thanks for popping in here and hanging out with us for a bit on that one. We've, it's always appreciative to start getting some community out here. And I do hope that some of what we saw over here with me going on there a couple weeks ago will lead to some of my people going over there and checking out more of his stream as well, both the video gaming and the newscasting rather. So a lot of stuff going on with that. But I kind of do want to get out of here tonight because I don't know why. I didn't eat enough today. I'm starving, and it's Friday in Wisconsin, which means it's fish fry night. So let's get through the stuff that we've got to go through here today. We've got a lot to do. And before we do that, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, and more as we bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. For too long, so many of us have got our news from sources that come from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses. No more! It is time for us to come back and get a better news experience from people who have had to make the same decisions that you have had to. So go check out all that great programming. It is going to be a great time. And let's get down into the main news of the day. Reminder for those of you who are wrong scene there. For long-time watchers of Contemporary, we used to do our live chat run on Friday. We currently do that on Monday because of the time slot and the fact that, just like me, a lot of other people are looking at going out and doing a fish fry, going and having some fun, and going and hanging out with family and friends. Especially, it is super warm out here tonight. Well, comparatively, compared to what it used to be. It was 51 when I got home from work this afternoon, so the sun is still out. I would sure love to be out there and hiking right now instead of coming in and reading the news and getting possibly frustrated, but the news stops for nobody, and we have got, not as much as we have had before, but definitely some doozies here over on Contemporary. So let's get down into it. Let's start with the finance for the day. By the way, it appears that there's not going to be any D-Live tonight. D-Live for whatever reason, and I don't know what happened with that, when I shut down the stream last night, excuse me, got itself caught into a loop where it didn't quite catch the shutdown command. So it is stuck in about a 5-second loop of the end title card and the end music. I have absolutely no idea why. But there is no D-Live tonight. It's been doing it all day, and I actually panicked because I thought I forgot to hit the end stream button, but I looked back as soon as it was brought to my attention that the D-Live was still going. I looked back and I saw the end of stream message and summary from Restream and Twitch. So I knew it was shut down, or at least my software was shut down, and I couldn't figure out what was going on with it. And then I realized, of course, that the outro music was still playing on my stream. On what the D-Live side was supposed to be, which I shut that down almost immediately as soon as I shut off the stream because I was watching somebody else play something. What was I watching last night? Oh, a girl playing Fallout 4 last night, which meant I didn't want to have the outro music going through my ears while I was doing so. So, yeah, with that, I don't know what's going on with D-Live. I don't know how to get it to shut down. I will be doing some exploring after the show here to see if I can't figure that out. But we've got a lot of news to go over, and let's get started. All right, starting with the Dow. The Dow closed higher today after clawing its way back from a rocky start. The Dow closing up 132.28 points, or 0.41% to 237.53. So a little bit of a gain, not much to write home about, and we'll talk a bit about what happened on the week because CNBC likes to close on that. Your Bitcoin for the day took a tailspin, coming down almost 1,000 points today, $991 and 40 US cents down. The Bitcoin to 27,361.50. So that is what we are seeing coming off of that. That's a bit of a tumble with that. So not sure what's happening with that. I don't know if a lot of people decided that they liked the US dollar or needed to go back and hurry out to get food or groceries or something else like that. We'll be talking a bit about that. And on the gas prices market, we are holding, again, somewhat steady with a little bit of reprieve coming. Station that we saw at 3:30 yesterday is down to 326. Out on the east side, the Speedway is up to 326. The Isthmus, the Amoco, has dropped back to 314, with the BP next to it down to 320, and the Quick Trip entering at 326 as well. So some of them are going up, some of them are going down. It's a bit of a mixed bag going on the Madison area. So we will see long term what this does, and if we are looking at another big price hike or if we're seeing a price drop. Let's grab one from CNBC and see what it is that they have to say. From CNBC, stocks close higher Friday as investors try to shake off latest bank fears. From Ha-Kyung Kim, Sarah Min, and Alex Herring. Stocks rose Friday after a volatile trading session, although Friday began with fears that the banking crisis was spilling over to Deutsche Bank. The markets rebounded to end the week on a higher note. The Dow gained 132.28 points, or 0.41%, closing at 32,237.53. The S&P rose 0.5%, while the Nasdaq ticked up 0.3. The major indices all had a winning week, with the Dow gaining 0.4 week to date as of Friday afternoon, while the S&P and the Nasdaq gained 1.4 and 1.6 respectively. One factor that helped the market bounce back in regional bank stocks, the sector rallied on Friday with the SPDR S&P Regional Bank ETF gaining 3.01% during the trading session. Amid all of the volatility, the KRE ended up the week up 0.18%. Sell-off of Deutsche Bank's U.S.-listed shares on Friday put downward pressure on the market sentiment and the major indices before the banks recovered some of its earlier losses. Deutsche Bank closed 3.11% lower Friday, rebounding from a 7% drop-off earlier in the trading session. A sell-off of shares was triggered after the German lender's credit default sways jumped, but without an apparent catalyst, the move appeared to raise concerns again over the health of the European banking industry. Earlier this month, Swiss regulators forced a UBS acquisition of rival Credit Suisse. Deutsche Bank shares traded off their worst levels at the session, which caused major U.S. indices to also cut their losses. I think that the market overall is neither frightened nor optimistic. It's simply confused, said George Ball, president at Sanders Morris Harris. The price action for the last month and a half, including today, is a jumble without any direction or conviction. So, European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde tried to ease concerns, saying Euro bank zones are resilient with strong capital and liquidity positions. Lagarde said the ECB could provide liquidity if needed. So, mostly it seems to be surrounding what is happening in the European banking sector. We'll continue to watch this and see what happens with the markets. And unfortunately, because it's part of Finance, the layoffs report. This one, I actually had to look up and see what this company was, because I didn't know. I actually had no idea. From CNN Business, Accenture slashes 19,000 jobs worldwide. From Anna Kubin. Accenture plans to slash 19,000 jobs worldwide as it attempts to cut costs amid a gloomy economic picture. The Irish-American professional services company said on Thursday filing that it would spend $1.2 billion in severance to cut 2.5% of its workforce over the next 18 months and another $300 million to consolidate its office space. More than half the axed roles would be among back-office staff, the company said. Accenture, which has 738,000 employees globally, said in its latest quarterly report to the Securities and Exchange Commission that it continues to hire, but had initiated actions to streamline its operations and transform our non-billable corporate functions to reduce costs. The $167 billion company downgraded its revenue growth outlook in the 2023 fiscal year to between 8% and 10%, from its previous estimate of between 8% and 11%. Shares in Accenture rose 3.9% to hit $263 apiece in early trade after its announcement. The New York listed stock is down more than 5% over the past 12 months. Accenture's rivals are also trying to trim their costs. Consulting giant KPMG announced in an internal memo last month that would cut almost 2% of its U.S. workforce as it anticipated waning client demand, according to the Financial Times report. McKinsey could also slash as many as 2,000 non-consulting staff in one of the biggest rounds of layoffs ever, Bloomberg reported last month, citing unnamed sources close to the matter. So it looks like, because this is a consulting company, this is basically a company that comes down and, if you have business questions or something, you have a subscription with Accenture, and you have somebody you can talk to about that. I've never used something like this, but I've never been in big corporate world either. And it looks like it almost looks like it is another big tech sell-off. They're getting rid of some of their web developers, some of their back-end, some of their accounting, people that don't necessarily bring in a profit for them. What we call in the dealership world, non-productive employees. Employees, which, by the way, I would be one of those where I work, but employees that are not at the front of what's bringing in the money, essentially. So, some things to watch for, some things to see with that, and some things to take care about and be wary about. But don't worry, of course, strongest economy in the world and everything is fine. All right, we've got our main news of the day, starting with NBC today. And we're actually going to listen to these people for just a moment because, well, a little bit of illness that I have been trying to kick over the week is starting to screw with me just a little bit here. So I got to step away from the desk for a little bit, but let's listen to NBC as we talk about Alvin Bragg. Oh, audio. Oops. Audio's over here. Come on.
Inside a letter addressed to him said, quote, Alvin, I'm going to NBC, the Manhattan DA's office. Just minutes ago, law enforcement sources tell WNBC that DA Alvin Bragg has now received a death threat. A note inside a letter addressed to him said, quote, Alvin, I'm going to kill you. It also contained a small amount of white powder. The substance was deemed non-hazardous, and there were no evacuations or injuries. Law enforcement sources also say the NYPD and now the FBI are both on scene investigating. We're going to go there as soon as we can. The threat comes after Donald Trump has been escalating his aggressive rhetoric against DA Alvin Bragg. Overnight, he posted a warning of potential death and destruction, his words, if he is charged. Critics were already worrying Donald Trump was getting dangerously close to inciting another riot. This will add to that concern. On that note, Republican lawmakers, led by Trump ally Marjorie Taylor Greene, just wrapped up a jailhouse tour in D.C. in what appeared to be a visit in solidarity with January 6 defendants. Joining me now on that death threat, NBC News senior legal analyst Laura Jarrett. So, Laura, we just got it from Jonathan Deans at WNBC and the other reporters there, and we have...
So, we don't need to sit down and listen to the interview with this here, but the anchor that started out with this actually laid out a very succinct way of talking about what's happening here. And when we look at some of this, when we see what's happening with this and where this goes. Now, first off, the MO. Remember, this is the exact same thing that happened to Jared and Ivanka in 2019, when the economy was doing fantastically, when everything was trucking along, and it looked like Donald Trump was going to sail to re-election. And by the way, it's never a poisonous substance. Anytime that you get one of these things, it's never a poisonous substance. But of course, you should be, especially if you're somewhere out and in public, you should still be on guard to some point if you get something like this, because the time that you don't expect it to be poisonous is the time that it's going to be poisonous. But this goes all the way back to the anthrax scares, back during the Bush years. And there are people, leftoids, people who are against Alvin Bragg, false flag. Oh, did I say that out loud? People who are completely against Alvin Bragg, who have no problem piling a bunch of powdered sugar into an envelope and mailing it out there, with the expectation that now this shuts down the entire office and sends a bunch of people home. And it never winds up being anything toxic. It's always something benign. And while they never say what the substance is, I'm pretty sure it's powdered sugar every time they do it. This comes from Jonathan Dienst, Derek Gregorian, and Laura Jarrett. The FBI and the NYPD are investigating a letter containing a death threat and white powder that was mailed to Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, in whose office is investigating former President Trump, law enforcement sources told NBC News. The letter was addressed to Bragg and said, "Alvin, I'm going to kill you," the sources said. It contained a small amount of white powder. There were no evacuations or injuries, officials said. It was the latest in what senior law enforcement source described as several hundred threats aimed at Bragg and his office in recent weeks. Feds. A couple dozen of the messages were considered to be directly threatening serious harm to Bragg, the source said. Feds. Bragg sent an email to his office acknowledging the difficult week. "I know it hasn't been easy," he wrote in an email, "with all the press attention and security around our office, and thanked everyone for their strength and professionalism during this time." Feds. "We will continue to apply the law evenly and fairly," he wrote. In a statement, the DA's office said the letter was immediately contained, and the NYPD Emergency Service Unit and the NYC Department of Environmental Protection determined there was no dangerous substance. Markings on the envelope indicate it was mailed from Orlando earlier this week, the sources said. It was postmarked on Tuesday, the sources said. So, there are a lot of things that are going on with this. Number one, that change up the timeline and shake this up. Well, what's funny about it is the letter comes in the wake of Trump announcing falsely that he would be arrested, and the probe this Tuesday, and the people should protest. His rhetoric has become more heated in the days since, including warning on social media early Friday of potential death and destruction if the DA indicts him. This is supposed to be the smoking gun. He said he made a direct threat and said there was going to be death and destruction. And then a letter was mailed from 4.5 hours north of Mar-a-Lago to Alvin Bragg's office. And it showed up on the same day that he said death and destruction. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, no, it's a coincidence. Now, do I wish that Trump hadn't said potential death and destruction? Yes, absolutely I do. But these two things are not interrelated. But the funniest part of that is, now typically if you're going to make a terroristic threat, or at least make it look like a terroristic threat, by putting powdered sugar in an envelope, you would, I don't know, do something to try to hide your postmark. Deliver it by hand, or try to do something to make sure that nobody could tell that it came from you. or what region of the country it came from, especially if it's coming from anywhere else in the country. And there are a lot of people around this country that are mad at Alvin Bragg. You probably wouldn't leave a postmark on the envelope. That would be a stupid thing to do, unless you were trying to get caught. And again, I do think that there was enough evidence out here to show that this was, I'd say, false flag on this one. I think this is one of Alvin Bragg's little allies out there who went out and decided he needed to go back and mail a letter like this to try to get a rise and try to say, dangerous Trump supporters. And look, it came from Florida, it came from DeSantis country, oh my god! I don't buy it. I don't buy a second of it. Fox News also reporting. Review. No, we're going to hold off on this one. Let's go to Newsweek instead. Talking more about the truth that Donald Trump put out. Bragg threatened hours after Trump warns of death and destruction. Do we have a picture of... Oh, no, we don't have a picture, but we do have the quote. Emergency personnel responded to Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's office on Friday after a package with suspicious white powder was reportedly found in the office mailroom. The package, which reportedly contained a message that said, Alvin, I'll kill you, came following a message posted on social media by former President Trump that warned of death and destruction if he's criminally charged in New York. Trump is being investigated by Bragg's office, we know that. $130,000 hush money payout, business filing, etc., we know that. On Thursday, Trump posted an all-caps message on his Truth Social platform because he only knows how to tweet out in all caps about Bragg that also suggested his supporters shouldn't be peaceful in protesting his possible indictment. Everybody knows I'm 100% innocent, including Bragg, but he doesn't care. He's just carrying out the plans of the radical left lunatics. Our country's being destroyed as they tell us to be peaceful. Later on Thursday, the former president incited anger by sharing an image on Truth Social that showed an image of himself holding a baseball bat next to a photograph of Alvin Bragg's face. That sounds like a very New York thing to do, by the way. Trump has today issued repeated stochastic terrorist calls for his cult to remove the animal, Alvin Bragg, and use a baseball bat. Keith Olbermann tweeted, "He's trying to get this man killed! Period! Enough!" Did he make a video with that? Please tell me he made a video with this. He didn't. Son of a bitch. I wanted to see that. In the early hours of Friday, Trump issued the death and destruction warning on Truth Social. What kind of person can charge another person, in this case, a former president of the United States, who got more votes than any sitting president in history, and leading candidate by far for the Republican Party nomination, with a crime when it's known that by all that no crime has been committed, and also known that potential death and destruction and such a false charge could be catastrophic for our country, Trump wrote. Yeah, that one I wish he wouldn't have done. But I do wonder if a part of this is seeing what he can get away with at this point, given the fact that so many people believe that the actual speech that he gave, not the speech that people believe that he gave, but the actual speech that he gave, had nothing to do with destruction, and in fact told people to march peacefully. And I will remind you that if you go out to protest, there are going to be FBI agents in the protest with you, trying to convince you to go back out and throw the brick. Did you, and I didn't confirm this and corroborate this, but when they were doing the actual, somehow peaceful protests in New York, the Young Republicans Club, somebody showed up dressed as the Q Shaman. And when they told him to get out of there, number one, they found out that he was a lifelong voting Democrat, but when they told him to get out of there because he was infiltrating, he busted down crying, saying that he just wanted to belong. So, that's what we have with that. As far as this goes, I'm actually a little bit surprised that this took this long. They say that there have been more threats. We haven't seen any of the threats. I would like to see some of them. The FBI is probably looking into them. Now, some unhinged morons out there are probably sending threats into Alvin Bragg's office. They do exist out there, and some of them are helped along by the FBI, but some of them are also working on their own cognizance, if you can call it that. But the ones that get noted, especially, the egregious ones, the ones with the white powder in them, I'm sorry, but I'm going to call that one a false flag. That's what I have to say with that one. Alright, but now for the title card of what we're talking about today. You see that? We only talked about Alvin Bragg for like 15 minutes. As opposed to the usual hours-long screeds that we had to go on about. Because this was the leading news story forever. But, if the grand jury all went home, there's really nothing to talk about with this except... letter with white powder! Oh my god! Alright, but let's talk about what's happening around the world, starting with our friends over at NPR. U.S. and militias linked to Iran trade airstrikes in Syria. Pentagon says, and remember, hit that donate button because NPR is in such dire straits that your taxpayer subsidies are not doing enough and they need our money, comrade, to reinstate those 4 podcasts that nobody listened to that they had to cut. So, hit that donate button and make sure that NPR can tell you how to be progressive, how to be communistic, how to share your money with everybody except those evil Republicans. NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio, let's see what it is they have to say. This is from Emily Olson and Bill Chappelle. U.S. forces in eastern Syria targeted in a rocket attack on Friday morning in a tit-for-tat strikes between the U.S. and militia groups supported by Iran, the Pentagon said. In the attack, 10 rockets targeted coalition forces at the Green Village in northeast Syria, U.S. Central Command said in a news release issued on Friday. The strike did not cause damages or injuries to U.S. forces or their partners, the command said, but it added that one rocket landed nearly 5 kilometers off target, striking a civilian house, causing significant damage and causing minor injuries to 2 women and 2 children. The latest incident comes just a day after the militia drone strike that killed a U.S. contractor, injured 5 American service members, and wounded 1 other contractor in Syria, the Defense Department said. Intelligence sources say the drone, which struck a U.S. base near Haseka, was made by Iran, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said in a statement. The drone in Thursday's deadly attack was struck by a maintenance facility at the base around 1:38 p.m. local time. Brigadier General Pat Ryder, the Pentagon's press secretary, said at a news briefing on Friday. It did not fire a weapon to my knowledge, he said. Asked on Friday how the drone was able to penetrate the site's defenses, Ryder refused to go into the detail about the protections. He added, my understanding is that there was a complete site picture in terms of radar. In response, Central Command conducted precision airstrikes on groups it says were connected with Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. As President Biden has made clear, we will take all necessary measures to defend our people and will always respond at a time and place of our choosing, Austin said. No group will strike our troops with impunity. Video shared on social media showed explosions in Deir el-Zor, a Syrian province near Iraq border that contained oil fields. That area is controlled by Iran-backed militia groups and Syrian forces, according to the Associated Press, and has seen recent damages from suspected airstrikes by Israel, targeted by alleged Iranian supply routes. In the U.S. strikes, Ryder said 2 Air Force F-15 fighter jets struck 2 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps affiliated facilities around 2:40 a.m. local time. Initial indications are that the facilities were destroyed, he said, adding that the U.S. is still assessing any potential militant casualties. The strikes on Thursday killed 11 people, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a group that monitors violence in the region with a network of local sources. 6 were Iranian-backed militants in a warehouse in the city. 2 were killed in the outskirts of surrounding town Al-Mayadeen. 3 others were killed in the surrounding desert. The number of fatalities is expected to rise as the strikes left several militiamen injured, some seriously, the group wrote online. Neither Iran nor Syria appeared to be immediately acknowledge the strikes. Speaking in a joint news conference in Ottawa with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, President Biden said Friday, to make no mistake, the U.S. does not emphasize, repeat the line, seek conflict with Iran, but be prepared for us to act forcefully to protect our people. That's exactly what happened that's what happened last night, man. Come on. Ryder made similar remarks, saying, "We do not seek conflict with Iran. We do not seek escalation with Iran. But the strikes that we took last night were intended to send a very clear message that we will take the protection of our personnel security seriously and that we will respond quickly and decisively if they are threatened." Yeah, you remember that time when we didn't have to go and do this? You remember that brief period of time where, most of the Middle East was actually at peace? Yeah, I remember because I'm more than 3 years old. The attack and retaliation posed threats to recent negotiations aimed at de-escalating tensions across the Middle East. Earlier this month, Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed to restore diplomatic ties in a deal brokered by China, raising questions about whether U.S. influence in the region is at risk of being overshadowed. Oh, it is. And not in a good way. The U.S. has had ground troops in northeastern Syria since 2015 when it was fighting the Islamic State. Syria's civil war, which erupted in 2011, has morphed into a wider proxy conflict that includes U.S. forces supporting Kurdish fighters and Iran supporting militants. So, we're back and forth going with each other, and again, a lot of this is going over not necessarily an alliance, but new talks that could lead to an alliance between Iran and Saudi Arabia. We'll skip the Fox News one again and talk just a bit about what happened with diplomatic ties from the Associated Press. Saudi Arabia and Syria may restore ties as Middle East reshuffles, from Abby Sewell. Saudi Arabia is in talks with Syria to reopen its embassy in the war-torn nation for the first time in a decade. State television in the kingdom reported late Thursday, the latest diplomatic reshuffling in the region. The announcement on state TV comes after Chinese-mediated talks in Beijing saw Saudi Arabia and Iran agree to reopen embassies in each other's nations after years of tensions. Syrian President Bashar Assad has maintained his grip on power in the Mediterranean nation, rocked by the 2011 Arab Spring only with the help of Iran and Russia, which made the historic call earlier in the day to Oman. Oh man. Saudi Arabian state television aired a report late Thursday quoting an anonymous official in the country's foreign ministry, acknowledging the talks between the kingdom and Damascus. A source in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs revealed to Al-Akhbariyah that ongoing discussions have begun with the Syrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Commenting on what was circulated by some international media, the anchor said on air, discussions are underway between officials in the kingdom and their counterparts in Syria about resuming the provisions of consular services. Arabic language media has been reporting the possible detente in recent days ahead of the Saudi state TV announcement. The Wall Street Journal, quoting an anonymous Saudi and Syrian officials, attributed the talks to reopen the country's embassies to Russian mediation. Syrian state media did not immediately acknowledge the talks. Officials in both Saudi Arabia and Syria did not immediately respond to requests for comments from the Associated Press early on Friday. Earlier Thursday, Vladimir Putin called Oman's Sultan Haytham bin Tariq, which the Kremlin called the first high-level bilateral contact since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the nations. Muscat established ties with the Soviet Union in 1985. Oman long has been the interlocutor between the West and Iran. Recent months have seen the talks in Oman over Yemen's long-running war, which Saudi Arabia backs the country's exiled government against the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels that hold its capital Sana'a. So let's just look at a little bit what's going on over here. Let's get the map. Because my libertarian friends tell me that unless we can identify all these countries, we are not allowed to talk about what's happening over there, as if it's our problem. Which, by the way, I respect to a certain point, except for the fact that with these two countries making alliances, while one of them is directly allied with this country, which is at a proxy war with us in this country, means that if this country over here starts making the oil dollar their own, oil being traded in the yuan, means that these people set the price on the oil that comes over here. Unless, of course, we actually open up our federal lands and even maybe have a talk over here, which I know Russia is sniffing around over here, and open up this massive oil field and drill, baby, drill. But what is happening here is we have airstrikes that are supposedly, allegedly, coming from here, Tehran, and hitting our airbase over here, Syria. While China has restored diplomatic talks between these two nations, Iran and Saudi Arabia, one of which is allied with us and has been since the Obama years, while diplomatic ties between Russia and shipping port Oman are now open back up, and a lot of this being over who is supporting who in a civil war in this country, Yemen. And again, the big danger here is that this country, and this country are some of the biggest producers of oil in the world. They don't have the biggest oil fields, but they're some of the biggest producers because they don't worry about environmental concerns. They just drill, baby, drill and ship that oil out. So, a few things that are shaping up over here. And of course, we also have to come back out and now talk about what's happening in this country. Starting with DW, made for mines. Denmark probes mystery object near Nord Stream pipelines, with no author given. Danish authorities have contacted the owners of the Nord Stream pipelines after discovering a mysterious object placed directly next to it on the seabed. The pipeline, which was built to carry Russian gas to Europe, was previously targeted in a suspected attack several months after Russia's February 24, 2022 invasion of neighboring Ukraine. On Thursday, the Danish Energy Agency released a photo of a cylindrical object, saying it simply may be a maritime smoke buoy that does not pose an immediate safety risk. With a view to further clarifying the nature of the object, Danish authorities have decided to salvage the object with the assistance from Danish Defense. The agency said in a statement, adding that it was waiting for a response from the pipeline operators before commencing its efforts. Vladimir Putin previously announced the discovery of a 40-centimeter object with a diameter of 10 centimeters earlier this month, saying Russian experts suspected it of being an explosive signal device. Yeah, it's about this big. Yay big. The Kremlin on Friday said it was important to establish what exactly the object is and called for a transparent investigation. It is certain positive news when owner of pipeline is invited to take part in various phases of investigation, said Dmitry Peskov. Currently, German, Swedish, and Danish authorities are carrying out an investigation into the September explosion that damaged the pipeline, spewing large amounts of gas from both the Nord Stream 1 and 2 into the Baltic Sea. It remains unclear who may have been behind the original attack. The majority stake in the twin pipelines is held by Russian energy giant Gazprom. The remaining shares are owned by the Dutch, French, and German companies. So that'll be interesting. I'd like to kind of figure out who was behind that and what happened there. I know there's a lot of speculation that it was us. And I'm not going to say yes or no to that. But I want to watch. I want to see. I want to figure out who did what and why and where. And yes, if we have to hold our leadership accountable, then we need to do so. Coming back stateside here, from the Associated Press. Fetterman expected back soon, but no certain timeline yet. He has been out of work in a mental health facility for 5 weeks. By the way, it was pointed out to me that if they can hold him into office, or if he is dead, which I don't know if that's the case or not, but if he is dead, and they can convince the public that he's alive until August 12th, Pennsylvania doesn't have to have a special election. Apparently, there is a time frame that Pennsylvania has to keep a seated senator before having a special election, or in order to have a special election. And if the seated senator has to be removed for death or disability, before that point it goes to a special election. Whereas after that point, Shapiro has nominating ability. I cannot confirm that, because I've not read the Pennsylvania State Constitution, but that is the rumor that's going around right now. Take it with a grain of salt that is necessary. From Mark Levy. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman's office said Thursday that he's expected to return soon to the chamber, although Democratic leaders are giving no timeline 5 weeks after he sought inpatient treatment for clinical depression. Fetterman was weeks into his service in Washington and still recovering from the after effects of the stroke he had last May during his campaign when he checked himself into Walter Reed on February 15th. Aides said at the time that Fetterman has not been his usual self for weeks. He was withdrawn, showing disinterest in talking, eating, and the usual banter with aides. Post-stroke depression is common and treatable, doctors say. Asked about when Fetterman might return, Chuck Schumer said that Fetterman is recuperating. Well, we want to give him the space to recuperate, Schumer said at a Wednesday news conference. He needs it. It's fair. It's right. There are people in the Senate who have taken their time to recuperate, but I'm confident that he's going to come back and be an outstanding and fine senator. Joe Calvello, spokesperson for Fetterman, said on Thursday he'll be back soon, at least over a week, but soon. That is, and again, that comes from the question now, if he checked himself in on February 14th, he has officially at this point been out of the Senate for longer than he's been in the Senate. No, not yet. I take that back, because they were seated on January 3rd, which means that he was in the Senate for just short of 6 weeks. It's only been 5 weeks in the hospital. So he's teetering right now on being away from his job for more than he's been on the job. He's not there yet, but he's getting there. But the question comes, I mean, what is it that the people of Pennsylvania are paying for at this point? And he's going to have a lifetime pension. I mean, no matter how long his life winds up being at this point, which there are questions about, he's going to have a lifetime pension, lifetime benefits, lifetime health insurance. And again, if they can hold him in the office for whatever reason until August 15th, then he can step away and say, I can't do this anymore. And then Shapiro gets to nominate his replacement. So, but it raises the question, by the way, and Dr. Oz was not a good candidate to run against John Fetterman. And I cite the fact that John Fetterman beat him as the reason. Of course, nothing bad happened in that election. Freest and fairest election in Pennsylvania history. Honk honk, more votes than Dr. Oz, and, even after a stroke. Which, again, and Dr. Oz was not the candidate that it should have been. It should not have been Dr. Oz. The Donald went on an endorsement spree of the wrong person on that one. But, I mean, this is the person you've elected to represent your state to the federal government. And this person is not representing your state. The only thing he's representing right now is Walter Reed. For symptoms that he knew that he had going in, by the way. I don't know if there is a sort of mechanism to remove somebody from the ballot and put somebody else up. I don't in Pennsylvania. I don't know if they explored these options after he had a stroke, but, I mean, you knew all of this going in. That you weren't healthy, that you weren't auditory. And these are conversations that should have happened during the campaign. Plain and simple. On the other side of things, the person that nobody wants to come back, from CNN, McConnell is chomping at the bit to return as several ailing senators absent from Capitol. From Ted Barrett, Ali Zaslav, Jessica Dean, and Kristen Wilson. Three closely watched ailing senators remain away from the Capitol this week, and it's not clear when they will return. One of them, the Turtle Man, McConnell, has spoken directly with some members of his leadership team and conveyed to them that he's doing well and anxious to get back to work. We just talked about Fetterman, so we can skip that paragraph. And Feinstein has not returned after being treated and is now home for shingles. Her aides won't speculate about when she will return. As it's still early in the new congressional session, it's not clear if the absences are creating real roadblocks to passing bills or approving nominees. The Senate has a 2-week recess after the end of next week, which could provide 3 senators the little added cushion time to regain their good health and return to the Senate in mid-April, although it's not certain. John Cornyn said McConnell's chopping at the bit to get back to work, and that the 81-year-old Kentucky senator sounds very sharp, following a fall 2 weeks ago that left him with a concussion and a fractured rib. What universe does Mitch McConnell sound sharp? I talk like this here because I had polio when I was a kid, so they're saying that I talk sharp. I just come out and wear a tan suit and then call that the Obama defense, and I do whatever's going to make me the most power. I don't care about anybody but myself. Yeah, that's really sounding sharp. A report that I got in the Discord a couple days ago, Republicans are looking for Senate candidates who are filthy rich. From Allie Mutnick. Senate Republicans have landed on a plan to avoid getting swamped by the Democratic cash again next year. Well, a part of the problem that they're having with Democratic cash is there's an Act Blue for every single candidate who has a chance or who doesn't. And as the candidates that don't have a chance fall out of favor, they don't get that money back out of Act Blue. It just gets recycled into a more competitive race. Yes, by the way, this is actually a thing that happens. Anytime, because you always see the same link in any Democrat profile, secure.actblue.com. All the money actually goes into one slush fund. And then Act Blue allocates it as they see fit. So there was a guy named Tom that was running for Senate in this state. And he wasn't the one that he got beat out by Mandela Barnes in the primaries. But he had a very active Act Blue that actually he got a lot of donations through. But that money went to other more competitive races across the country, and it doesn't even stay in the state. It goes anywhere in the country that there's a competitive race that they need to come out and say, we're out raising. So far, at least 10 candidates with sizable net worth are seriously considered self-funded Senate campaigns in more than half a dozen swing states. Many of them at the behest of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. And what do you want to bet? They are neoconservative war pigs, by the way. Both parties have relied on self-funders before, but this approach has taken on increasing importance for Republicans because they failed to counter Democrats' massive grassroots funding. That's not grassroots, it's corporate funding. In Senate races during the past 2 cycles. In 2022 alone, Democrat nominees outraised Republicans by $288 million in the 6 closest Senate races because, again, remember, they were able to come back in and pull money off of other candidates who got donations and put it all into the slush fund and then redistribute it back out where it sees fit. Think of all the money that Nikki Fried got in her Act Blue. That I think the majority of that went to the... no, that didn't go to the Abrams campaign because they cut ties with her. Actually, quite early on. And all the money that Abrams got in her Act Blue. A lot of that money went to Fetterman.
And a lot of that went into the Georgia senatorial runoff again. The strategy is also acknowledgement that the party's reliance on super PACs funded by its richest supporters has been insufficient. In the last 2 elections, Republicans were unsuccessful in stopping Democrats from nabbing narrow majority in the upper chamber. Arming themselves with better funded recruits, many of whom can give their campaigns tens of millions of dollars, could help with them finally net the 2 seats needed to reclaim the gavel. Potential self-funders this cycle include Tim Sheehy, the Montana founder of aerospace company, Eric Hovde, a real estate executive in Wisconsin. No, that's bad. No. Get rid of that guy. Stop with that crap right there. And West Virginia Governor Jim Justice, a coal mining magnate. In politics, as in life, money doesn't buy happiness, but poverty doesn't buy a damn thing, said Senator John Neely Kennedy of Louisiana. So if you've got a candidate who can self-fund, you can spend your money elsewhere. Democrats are always going to outraise us, he said, which again comes basically on the fact of they use Act Blue as a slush fund, and everything that's left over from Act Blue, also by the way, will be used in the next election cycle. Just so you know. It's still there. There are no limits on how much candidates can donate or loan to their own campaigns, so a crop of rich recruits could offer a much-needed solution to the GOP's now systemic fundraising woes. The NRSC's new chair, Senator Steve Daines of Montana, has placed an emphasis on trying to secure candidates who are either exceptional at fundraising or personally wealthy. According to a source familiar with this thinking, who is granted anonymity to speak candidly about strategy. It's helpful, Daines said in a brief interview. We've got some work to do to catch up. So that's what they're trying to do. Get the rich neocons back in, and to hell with populism. Let's talk about what the left is trying to do in the wake of what's actually happening around the country. From the New York Post. Utah parents want Bible removed from schools. It's pornographic. From Brooke Cato. Is there a lot of sex in the Bible? Yes. God's bestseller is next up on the chopping block. A Utah parent is calling for the Bible to be banned in school districts, claiming it violates the state's 2022 law regarding sensitive material. Violates a lot of other laws, too. Get this porn out of our schools, pleased the anonymous parent in their scathing request to Davis High School, calling the Bible one of the most sex-ridden books around. Utah's law, HB 0374, passed last year, prohibits materials that include pornographic or indecent content. The parents cited the Bible's incest, onanism, bestiality, prostitution, genital mutilation, fellatio, dildos, rape, and even infanticide as the cause for its removal. The disgruntled parent wrote to the school board on December 11th, per documents obtained by the Post. Well, realistically, on a taxpayer-funded library, the Bible actually should not be in there. And I'm telling you right off the bat, there are enough printing presses out there that print off free copies of the Bible that you don't need to depend on your school library to get the Bible. I could probably make 4 clicks on the internet and have a Bible delivered here tomorrow. Hell, I could walk, there's a church down the road from me, but it's not a Wells church, it's a Lutheran church, but not a Wells one. I could walk down there, probably tonight yet, because I think they do Bible study on Friday nights, and walk out with a Bible, on my very own, unpaid. You don't need to depend on the school library for this, and yes, again, as a taxpayer-funded institution, yes, let's get the Bible out of schools, but also let's get the Quran, and the Talmud, and anything about Buddha, and anything else out of there, too. I'm down. I think we need more biblical values in school, but it's a taxpayer-funded institution. Let's see what else do we have. Some video here. Friend of the show, Mira, over on Twitter, in which House Democrats whip Karen Clark has a mental breakdown on the House floor because Republicans don't want children exposed to pornography at school. Let's drop the music for just a bit.
Republicans refuse to enact common sense reforms. Why? Politics over parents. How about something as basic as feeding our children? Nope. House Republicans voted against the child tax credit. They voted to slash food stamps and eliminate free school lunches. Once again, politics over parents. And then there's the shameless hypocrisy. Talking about parents' rights as the GOP strips away Americans' rights to decide if and when they are going to have children. At every turn, House Republicans have undermined the rights, freedom, and well-being of our nation's families. Let's say yes to parents and no to this shameful bill. I yield back.
The gentleman from Virginia reserves the...
Republicans refuse to enact common sense reforms. Why? Politics over parents.
There you go.
How about something as basic as feeding our children? Nope.
So, and this has always been one of the big questions that I've had about this, is the fact that our friends to the left seem so eager to have this kind of material in school. Now, one thing that I will point out, in some of the upper grades, you're going to start to see books with more adult themes. People who are interested in reading are going to start picking up some of these books. As far as things that didn't come from the library, I have seen some books that would make full-grown adults blush being carried around by teen girls that I went to high school with. When I was 14, 15, 16, you know, the romance novels with Fabio on the front of them. That's, again, not something I directly am interested in seeing coming out of a school library either. And I will admit, on the other hand of this, I've read Tom Clancy out of the school library, and there was the allusion, although not the explicit talk about the organs and such, love scene in The Sum of All Fears, which I'm currently reading. And have been for a year. Whoops. Some of the differences in the literature, though, especially, like, even still going, we'll lump the smutty romance novel with Fabio on the cover in with a Clancy book, whereas that's not always the central theme, is the actions of what's happening there, whereas in some of these books that are being cited, not all of them, but some of them, the actual action of the copulation is the central theme of the book. That's the kind of stuff we're looking to get out of there. And it pains me to think that these people want to have this in there. And again, my biggest gripe about this is these books are not banned. You can walk down to the local Barnes & Noble and get that same book off the shelf if you really want to read that kind of filth. It's there, along with several dozen, maybe hundreds of books that you can't get in your school library currently. And the even bigger side of that is if you don't want to go down to Barnes, you can open up Kindle on any device that you have. I use my phone and I use my tablet, and find thousands upon thousands of more books that are probably not in your school library. They're not banned, they just don't want to be put out in front of children on the taxpayer dime. There's a major difference about this. Hakeem Jeffries also getting in on this. Also coming from friend of the show, Mira.
Their educational agenda is pretty simple. They want to ban books. They want to bully the LGBTQ plus community. They want to bring guns into classrooms, kindergarten and above. That's their educational agenda. They want to ban books.
Nobody wants kindergartners to bring guns into school, by the way. That is typically, in today's day and age, somebody who does not have the mental capacity to understand and respect the nuances of a firearm. Typically. I do have nieces and nephews who are a little bit different in that because, their dad owns the gun store. So they've been around it for a lot more often. And they've learned from a very, very young age to respect the firearm. But for the most part, a 5-year-old doesn't have the mental capacity to do something like that.
About history, ban books about the American journey, ban books about the Holocaust, ban books about slavery, ban books about the civil rights movement, ban books about the LGBTQ plus experience, ban books about the Native American experience, ban books about the Latino experience, ban books about the Asian American experience, ban books about our collective journey.
So, Jeffries, of course, wanted to make sure that you know about the struggle of the slave, whether it's real or not. All right. A little bit of shake-up in the Biden admin coming to us. From the New York Post, woke DOD official Kelissa Wing reassigned after GOP highlights anti-white tweets. Well, that can't be racist. That's not against black people. From Caitlin Doombos. Self-described woke Defense Department schools official Kelissa Wing, whose anti-white social media comments garnered national attention last fall, has been reassigned to an unrelated role, the Post has learned. The Defense Department in October launched a 30-day review of Wing, the now former Education Activity Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, after her Twitter post with disparaging comments about white people resurfaced. I'm so exhausted at these white folks in these professional development sessions. This lady actually had the audacity to say black people can be racist too. She wrote, caudacity. She wrote in one post in June 2020 using a portmanteau for Caucasian audacity. While Wing's job change came after the DoD completed its review, Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness, Gilbert Cisneros Jr., said it took place not as a disciplinary action, but rather as a part of headquarters restructuring. But at a House Military Personnel Subcommittee hearing on the impacts of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the DoD and military, Elise Stefanik said she was skeptical that the job change was made purely for reorganizational purposes. Oh, it was. It was made for reorganizational purposes because people caught on to the hatred that was spewing from this person. And said, you either get rid of her or we're going to get rid of her for you. I have a feeling it has to do with the fact that we Republicans have shined a light on this, she said. Well, I bid you a very, very warm farewell. Change the track a little bit. Those of us who watch this on Instagram have no idea what happens when I do that, by the way. Come on to the main channels. Ray Epps back in the news. Man targeted by January 6th conspiracists demands retraction from Fox News and Tucker Carlson over lies. From Oliver Darcy and Marshall Cohen. An attorney for Ray Epps, the Arizona man, that January 6th conspiracy theories falsely claimed. There's so much editorialization in this article, by the way. It's impossible to get real information out of it. Falsely claimed led the FBI plot. Nobody has said that he led it. All we say is that he is on camera whispering in people's ears and saying that we need to go into the Capitol. And then when people started going into the Capitol, he suddenly disappeared and turned tail and went the other way. Nobody's saying that he's led it. Demanded an on-air retraction Thursday from Fox News and its right-wing talk show host Tucker Carlson, and claimed that they made false and defamatory statements about him. The fanciful notions that Mr. Carlson advances on a show regarding Mr. Epps' involvement in the January 6th Selfie Fest are demonstrably and already proven to be false, an attorney Michael Teeter wrote in a letter, and yet Mr. Carlson persists with his assault on the truth. As part of the conspiracy theory, some right-wing figures baselessly claimed Epps was part of a secret FBI plot to orchestrate the attack. Carlson has repeatedly breathed life into these conspiracies by giving them attention on his highly rated program. On many occasions, Carlson has specifically mentioned Epps on his show and has played footage from the January 6th of Epps at the Capitol. This is my favorite part. In a private deposition with the White House committee that investigated the January 6th, Epps denied that he ever worked for the FBI or for federal law enforcement, according to a transcript of his interview. He told the committee that he supported Trump in 2020 and attended the D.C. protest because he was concerned about widespread voter fraud. The denials from Epps are meaningful because it's a crime to lie to Congress. There it is. It's a crime to lie to Congress. That means that nobody will ever do it. You've got to be kidding me. Alright, from ABC. This is actually, I think, a good thing. Unfortunately, it's being done the wrong way. From ABC, Utah social media law means kids needs approval from parents. From Sam Metz and Barbara Ortute. Children and teens in Utah would lose access to social media apps such as TikTok if they don't have parental consent and face other restrictions under a first-in-the-nation law designed to shield young people from the addictive platforms. Two laws signed by Republican Governor Spencer Cox Thursday prohibits kids under 18 from using social media between the hours of 10:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m., require age verification for anyone who wants to use social media in the state, and open the door to lawsuits on behalf of children claiming social media harmed them. Collectively, they seek to prevent children from being lured into apps by addictive features and from having ads promoted to them. The companies are expected to sue before the law takes effect on March 2024. The crusade against social media in Utah's Republican supermajority legislature is the latest reflection on how politicians' perceptions of technology companies has changed, including among typically pro-business Republicans. Tech giants like Facebook and Google have enjoyed unbridled growth for over a decade, but amid concerns over user privacy, hate speech, misinformation, and harmful effects on teens' mental health, lawmakers have made big tech attacks a rallying cry on the campaign trail and begun to try to rein them in once in office. Utah's law was signed on the same day as TikTok CEO testified before Congress about, among other things, the platform's effect on teenagers' mental health. But legislation is stalled on the federal level, pushing states to step in. Do I think this is a good idea? Kind of. Yes, parents should be monitoring what their kids do online, on the social media app, on their phones. Yes, there should be monitoring. That's called being a parent. You should know who your kids are talking to, what they're doing, who they're connecting with, etc. That's called being a parent. I disagree with the fact that the government has to step in order to make this happen. But yes, this is something that absolutely 100% should be happening. That's called parenting. The state should not be the parent in this situation. And I do think that these social media companies are right to sue over this because, as far as who should be in the authority seat of this, yes, they're still trying to sell a product. Maybe targeting the wrong people, absolutely, but they're just still trying to sell a product. And their ire again should be at the parents, not necessarily government officials who are trying to make the parents do their jobs. Just a couple more here. This is a weird one for me because I was there for a lot longer than this. Now, I was an out-of-state student. I don't know if that changes things. But because of the non-campus living aspect of where I went to school, maybe there's a reason why I never got bugged by this. But this never came up for me. Well, the whole 2 years I was there. And I'm actually blown away by the fact that this happened to somebody else. A lot of this is a busybody, I think, that had not enough to do. A Virginia man visited friends in Boston. Now he's facing a license suspension over his out-of-state plates. From Leslie Gatos. And the worst part about this is Virginia is not stepping in to do something about this. A Virginia man is facing a driver's license suspension if he doesn't register his vehicle in Massachusetts by tomorrow. The problem is he doesn't live there. It's so simple, said Ben, who lives in Virginia and doesn't want to use his last name. Understandable. It would take a human being 30 seconds to realize there's been a mistake. Last fall, he visited friends in Boston for a month. He said someone called the registry, a motor vehicle's tip line, reporting his out-of-state plates. The fact that they have a tip line, by the way, is a part of the problem. That in and of itself is part of the issue. Hey, here's a chance for you to go back and narc out somebody that you don't like. And now he said the Massachusetts RMV is forcing him to dual register his car there. I thought this was silly, said Ben. Naively, I thought, wow, this will really be easy to demonstrate that it doesn't apply to me because I don't live in Mass, work in Mass, or have a Mass address. I'll just get on the phone with someone for 30 seconds, give them my document showing that I have the right insurance to drive in Massachusetts and that I live in Virginia, and that will take care of it. And I wish that had been the case, but unfortunately it didn't go that way. After making dozens of calls, sending documentation, proof of his Virginia residency, and filing an appeal, Ben says he was told that if he doesn't register the vehicle in the Bay State by Friday, his license would be suspended and Virginia will be notified. The DMV there told Ben that they will suspend his license as well. That's the worst part of it. It'll be a huge hardship, said Ben, and one of the only avenues I have is appealing this case, which can't happen before I lose my license. And in order to do that, I have to attend an in-person hearing in Massachusetts. I don't know how I'm going to get there if my license is suspended. Well, I would just drive if it was me. And I can't drive myself to Massachusetts or from the airport to the hearing. Well, there's Uber. Ben said he did get a call from the supervisor in the Enforcement Services unit who told him under Chapter 90, Section 3 of Mass Code, anyone who operates a motor vehicle for 30 days in a calendar year is required to register the vehicle, and he says he heard from the Department of Transportation Ombudsman's office, which told me there's nothing they can do and I'll just have to wait and see what happens. He explained. This is ridiculous in every single way that you could possibly find this ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is above and beyond. Number one, the fact that they have a narc line in Mass, which actually doesn't surprise me. I'm not going to lie, having lived there for 2 years, that doesn't surprise me. But now my question here, this is my big question here. Because he said that he did this in fall and he only stayed there for a month. Is he back in Virginia now? Because it seems like he's back in Virginia now and this shouldn't be an issue. And again, I am so blown away by the fact that Virginia isn't doing something about this. Well, not that they're not doing something about this, but that they are doing something about this. I have had my license suspended in Illinois before. It's been suspended in Wisconsin too, but it's been suspended in Illinois, which didn't affect anything in my home state of Wisconsin. I just wasn't supposed to drive in Illinois, and oops, I did that anyway. It was over unpaid tolls. Anyway, I was really poor, and I had to get to work. But again, my license suspension in Illinois had no bearing, no effect anywhere else in the country. So, I don't know what it is. Why Virginia is choosing to suspend his license as well. That just seems off the wall to me. And under any normal circumstance, I mean, if it was me, if the license is suspended, unless you go and register in the state that you don't live in, I would just not drive in the state for, like, how long is it? 6 months, a year, however long they suspend you for. Just don't drive in that state for that period of time. But unfortunately, that doesn't appear to be the case, and instead, it appears that yes, he is going to have his life interrupted in his home state over something that doesn't involve his home state. And the last one, a business that people are starting to speculate whether or not they'll come back. And some speculation from me as to what that would look like. From WTOP News. Blockbuster comeback, remembering ups and downs of renting movies in person. I'm actually going to do this one first. And then we'll look at the ups and downs. CBS News instead says the Blockbuster website is active and fans are speculating about a comeback. What is the status of the company? From Caitlin O'Kane. Children of the 80s and 90s rejoiced this week when they realized a blast from the past may be creeping back into the zeitgeist. Blockbuster. The antiquated but still beloved movie rental retailer has a live website even though the company ceased most of its operations in 2014. Some fans believe that it's evidence the company is making a comeback. In a tweet this month, the company joked about reopening. New business idea. We're going to come back as a bank and use VHS and DVDs as currency. Time to visit your mom. The tweet was a joke, but 3 days later, Twitter users realized the Blockbuster website was active again. The message on the homepage, we're working on rewinding your movie. After a few people tweeted they had noticed the website was active, more nostalgic Blockbuster fans shared their theories about the website, as well as their memories of picking out flicks and video games with their families and friends. Some of my favorite childhood memories were going to Blockbuster on a Friday night, one person tweeted. The Blockbuster website is alive. If they make a comeback in any way, I'll cry, another tweeted. One person said a Blockbuster comeback would be epic. Seeing the Blockbuster chain would bring memories from the past. Friday nights after middle school, my cousins and I would make a run for the store, rent movies, video games, and it would be our weekend party, they tweeted. While Blockbuster was a mainstay for so many families in the 80s and 90s, on-demand movie options started to become more popular, with rentals available with a click of a button. Brick-and-mortar movie retailers puttered out, and Blockbuster announced in 2014 it would be closing its nearly 300 remaining stores in the U.S. The company had tried to adapt as the movie rental landscape changed, like the early days of Netflix. Blockbuster was mailing DVD rentals to homes, eliminating the need to drive to the store, but Netflix pivoted to streaming, and Blockbuster chose not to, a business decision that ultimately led to their downfall. The Blockbuster brand was sold to satellite TV company Dish in 2011 for $320 million. According to Variety, they own the licensing rights and created Blockbuster On Demand, a library of thousands of movies available to Dish customers, and a standalone app. The app is no longer available. In 2021, Blockbuster Decentralized Autonomous Organization, or DAO, was created with the goal of acquiring Blockbuster from Dish. A DAO is an entity that has no central governing body, unlike a corporation with executives or board members at the top. They usually use crypto in transactions. The Blockbuster DAO, later renamed Rewind, had a goal of raising $5 million to buy the brand from Dish. The Blockbuster brand is not only nostalgic, but it's a historic landmark of the history of film, the DAO's account retweeted on December 2021. Despite its 1-1 brand recognition, the company was destroyed by terrible leadership and an inability to pivot and make dynamic business decisions. Rewind, which has become a video platform for creators, said that they had 13 meetings with Dish about the acquisition. Unfortunately, the idea of wholly acquiring Blockbuster brand was shut down immediately. It's unclear whether the Blockbuster website was activated or updated, and Blockbuster no longer has an active public relations email, but CBS reached out to the last remaining Blockbuster location in Bend, Oregon for any insight they might have. I do wonder about what is going to happen with this. It doesn't look like there's any sort of acquisition. And I said the same thing, by the way, about GameStop, when the meme stock came up out of there. And GameStop really was a kind of thing where, again, it didn't really keep up with the new digital services for consoles. Yes, there's always an appetite for going out and getting new titles and hard copies and physical copies of things, but I mean, for the most part, I'm a PC gamer. I get my games on Steam. I pick them out on Steam, I buy them, they get downloaded digitally to my computer. And I know that I should be having physical copies of some of these things, because when I start to be the bad boy that people in corporate America don't like, my Steam account will probably be shut down. But with that being said, I look at my library, I look at Steam, and I say this is probably the way of the future, and GameStop should find a way to both do rentals and also have a purchasing, and maybe even make their own console, or maybe a Fire Stick of some sort where you can transmit games to on a temporary basis. These were ideas that I had for GameStop once they started hitting big on the meme stock avenue. Now, is Blockbuster being a streaming service? That in and of itself might be a meme, because there's so much competition out there. And not a lot of people have a physical player for physical media. I don't even know what physical media would look like in 2022. Or 2023 rather. I have no idea what it would look like. And I do kind of miss, there were some fun things about going. I didn't go to Blockbuster. There was one in Kenosha, but I didn't go there. I went to Family Video, and I don't know what it was like in Blockbuster, because I didn't go there. But like in Family Video, you'd go in there, you'd rent a couple movies, you'd probably take 3 or 4 home and watch them over the weekend. Yes, it is only a meme that I've only seen 5 movies. I've seen not as many movies as people think that I should have seen, but I have seen more than 5 movies. That used to be a thing for Friday nights for me as well, before I became of age and could go to the bar. But it wasn't just that you go in there and you get the movies. They had snacks, they had popcorn, they had video games. They had all sorts of other things other than just the game, or just the games and the movies. You had a plethora of other options to make your Friday night with friends. Have a bunch of friends over, watch a bunch of movies and stuff. And it was all in one place. You didn't have to go to the Family Video and then go get the movie, and then stop at the Quick Trip and go get snacks and things. It was all right there. So I don't know where this is going to go. I like the idea. But with that, we're going to head out of here for the night. And before we do, the last thing that we do on Friday is we look at our Twitter trending for the week, for the day rather, and see what it is that Twitter thinks that we are supposed to be talking about versus what we actually talked about. So we'll get the Explore page up, and we'll get the trending up, and we will look in number 1, of course, as it usually is, for whatever reason. Again, I didn't even know WWE was still a thing. But trending again, number 1 is SmackDown. Cena vs. Theory will be kicking off WrestleMania over at SmackDown. Cena's still wrestling? Dude, he's got to be getting up there. Cody Rhodes says Solo's not ready and Roman won't be ready either. Let's see. A beautiful woman, that is all. 6. She looks so good. Wait, I don't even know who that is. Yeah, John Cena was just getting started when I was starting to move away from wrestling. Which means he's been at this for 20 years. That's crazy. Alright, Bama just took the top trend. Will Anderson at the NFL Combine, built by Bama. Looks like Alabama is playing March Madness right now, so they're having trouble shooting. I did not even try to keep up with March Madness this year. I had so much else going on, I couldn't even think about who is playing, who's doing anything, and who's winning. So, unfortunately, we lost out on that one. Apparently it's against San Diego State right now, too. Brandon Miller. More Alabama news. If Alabama has suspended Brandon Miller for 2 games in the middle of the season, and Nate Oates has said, "We expect better decision-making," 90% of the people would have accepted that and moved on. By pretending they were 100% transparent and blameless, they created their own PR firestorm. Please, Washington Wizards, draft Brandon Miller, pathetic ass, dirty, disgusting franchise, wipe my ass with your nose. So, okay, apparently Brandon Miller is not a good person. Let's review. First half, Brandon Miller shoves a rebounder for his third, and they call it on someone 4 steps away. Second half, Matt Bradley has the ball, and Bediako falls on him. The refs call it on Bradley for his third, and tee up Dutcher. An argument about the refs. Alright, not Love is Blind 84 or 4. Fetterman is trending right now. Did he get out? Juanita Broderick says, I think a DNA sample is in order here. That's not Fetterman on the right. Yeah, I would have questions. Is it just me, or does John Fetterman's face look a lot different? I'm not one to push conspiracy theories, but John Fetterman's face looks a lot different. Yeah, his ears are tucked back. The shape is completely different. Who is this pictured with Fetterman's wife? Yeah, that would be enough for me to question. Michael Young-Jai says, new improved Fetterman 2 has arrived straight off the manufacturer's assembly line at Dulce Air Force Base, New Mexico. A longer skull was done on this model to add a couple of IQ points. Nice. We're going to put a pin in this, and we're going to have some fun in the Discord later. If you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. We're going to come back off of this and finish off our Twitter trending here, because it's Fish Fry Night. They have actually shifted again, so... The only other one that we have here that we haven't seen so far is San Diego State. That Aztec MBB Jam has San Diego State fans hyped. Apparently this is an intense game. San Diego State's defense currently most closely resembles that of the '85 Bears. Nice. Nice. That was a good one. That was a deep cut, but I like that. That was a funny one. Halftime, San Diego State has a 28. Roll Tide is at 23. Love all the blocks by San Diego State, but my favorite part was them keeping the ball in bounds. Nice. So it looks like this, again, is a pretty intense game for the night. We'll see who wins, and we'll see whose bracket gets busted over this. And with that, we're going to finish out. Quiet night tonight, but that's fine. I know we had some unfamiliar faces in here, so a little bit of conversation going on here, but it's Friday night, so I do hope that those of you who weren't here today, who watched this on the replay, had a good Friday night. Hope you had a date or spent some time with your families or got a good fish fry. That's what I'm about to go do. And again, we got out of here a little bit early, so we don't have to, go for the full 2 hours every night. That's kind of nice too. I like that. After being inundated and flooded with Trump news for half the week, to have a nice, easy night, talk a little bit about things that are going around in the world, talk about Fetterman, and then get out of here early too, that's kind of nice. Alright, let's throw the outro music up and head out of here for the day. I really gotta go take some more cold medicine. Holy crap. It was a tough one, but we made it through. And I had to get up twice to blow my nose. And the third one is on the way. Alright, so thanks everybody who did come by and chat in the live chat, and everybody, of course, who is out here watching this on the replay as well. I do have to go out of town over the weekend here because I have to go do some fix on my dad's truck, so we'll be seeing what's going on with that. I might have to be a video game fix or two by the end of all this as well. We'll see what's happening there. Otherwise, come back. Join me here on Monday for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. We will see if Alvin Bragg actually died from his white powder. We will see if they actually throw the indictment or throw the arrest up. We'll see who is winning on March Madness, which is drawing to a close at this point. And we'll see if Fetterman actually does come back and recover. It is going to be all this and more. We will see you here on Monday for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And hopefully a clearer nasal passage. It's been a hard week, trust me on that. But looking forward to that, looking forward to seeing more of you here then, and until Monday, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.